The morning of my sister's wedding, I was still in work boots. I'd spent the first half of the day at my place, touching up a piece of trim that didn't sit right along the hallway baseboard. It was the kind of small fix no one notices until it's wrong. The house was quiet, sawdust still in the air, a cup of coffee cooling on the counter. By early afternoon, I cleaned up, showered, and put on the suit I'd bought just for that day. Charcoal, nothing flashy. Then I drove across town to the Lakeside Pavilion in Richmond, the kind of venue that looks nicer at night when the lights are on and you can't see the seams. My sister, Lauren, looked happy, really happy. She was 27 and she'd been planning this wedding for a year like it was a second job. She walked around the reception space with that tight, excited energy, fixing a ribbon here, checking a seating card there, never sitting down for more than 10 seconds. Her new husband, Evan, seemed steady. He was polite in a way that didn't feel forced, the kind of guy who looks you in the eye when he shakes your hand and actually listens to the answer. I remember thinking quietly that it was going to be a normal night. Dinner had just started when my parents came over to my table. My mom didn't smile when she sat down. My dad didn't even pretend to. "Trevor," my mom said, leaning in like she was about to ask me a favor that could be handled in a quick conversation. "We need you to do something for your sister." I set my fork down. The room smelled like roasted chicken and sweet wine. Somewhere behind me the band was warming up with soft instruments. Nothing loud yet, just a few notes being tested. "What is it?" I asked. My dad stared at the tablecloth for a second, then looked up. "Lauren needs a house." I nodded once. "Okay." He didn't nod back. "She needs your house." I didn't say anything right away, because my brain did that slow thing it does when it hears something that doesn't fit reality, like it's waiting for the rest of the sentence to make it normal. But he didn't add anything. He just sat there, sure of himself. My mom's voice stayed calm. "You're single, you don't need all that space, they're starting their life, it makes sense." A couple at the next table stopped talking. I noticed because the silence has a shape when it spreads. It doesn't hit all at once, it moves outward. "My house isn't a spare room," I said. I kept my voice even. "It's mine." My dad's jaw tightened. "We helped you." "You lent me money once," I said. "I paid it back. Every dollar." He leaned forward. "That's not the point." I looked across the room and saw my sister laughing at something a bridesmaid said. Her hands were full. Champagne flute, napkin, some little piece of wedding chaos. She didn't know what was happening at my table yet. I remember noticing my mom's perfume when she shifted closer. Heavy floral, the same one she'd worn since I was a teenager. "This is family," she said. "You do the right thing." I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I just breathed in through my nose, slowly, the way you do when you're trying to stay steady. "The right thing," I said, "is not demanding something that isn't yours." My dad's chair scraped the floor, a harsh sound against the music and chatter. He stood up like he'd been waiting for an excuse. And the next few seconds happened so fast that later, when a security officer asked me to describe it, I had to piece it together from the shape of the room and the sound of metal. I saw my father's hand reach behind him. I saw something lifted off a nearby display table, one of those heavy decorative stands they'd used for the cake. And then I felt the impact at the side of my head before I fully understood he'd swung it. I hit the floor hard, shoulder first. The chair tipped back. Someone gasped. Then the room went quiet, the kind of quiet that isn't calm, it's held breath. My hearing turned thin and high, like a whistle inside my skull. I touched my temple and my fingers came away warm and wet. Above me, my mom's face appeared, blurred at the edges. "Get up," she said, not panicked, not worried. "You're making a scene." I didn't answer. I couldn't. Not yet. Through the ringing, I heard a man's voice cut through the silence, firm, trained, and I remember one specific detail that didn't make sense in that moment. A printed email clutched in Evan's hand, folded like he'd been carrying it all night. Then I waited, still on the floor, while the room finally started to move. The security officer knelt beside me first. He didn't touch my head. He didn't rush. He just planted one knee on the carpet and spoke clearly, like he was giving instructions on a job site. "Sir, don't move. Ambulance is already on the way." I stayed still. The ceiling lights above the banquet hall were too bright, and the edges of everything looked slightly tilted, like a picture frame hung wrong. People started talking all at once, but it felt distant, like I was underwater. Shoes moved in and out of my line of sight. Someone said my name. Someone else said my father's. I heard Evan's voice close by, tighter than before. "What did you do?" he asked. Not shouting, just disbelief. My father didn't answer him. The security officer stood and turned, his posture changing. Authority sliding into place without drama. "Sir," he said to my father, "step back from him." My mother tried to speak, but the words tangled. She kept smoothing her dress like that would put things back where they belonged. By the time the paramedics arrived, I was aware of three things very clearly: the smell of iron from the blood, the stiffness in my neck, and the fact that no one was yelling, not even my father. The paramedics worked efficiently. One asked my name, another checked my pupils, a third cut the collar of my shirt just enough to see the wound. As they lifted me onto the stretcher, I caught sight of my sister for the first time since it happened. Lauren stood near the cake table. Her hands were empty now. Her dress was perfect and untouched, like this wasn't her wedding night anymore, just a paused moment she didn't know how to step out of. She met my eyes. "Trevor," she said. One word, no apology, no question. I looked away. The ambulance doors closed with a heavy sound that felt final, even though I didn't yet know why. At the hospital, everything slowed down again. White walls, rubber wheels, a curtain pulled halfway closed. A doctor with tired eyes introduced himself and explained things in plain language. Concussion, head laceration, CT scan to be safe. I nodded when appropriate. Answered questions when asked. I've always been good at following procedures. While I waited, a police detective came by. She sat instead of standing, which I noticed. She asked if I felt up to giving a statement. I said yes. She didn't rush me. She let me talk in order. I told her about the conversation at the table, about the demand, about refusing, about the sound of the metal stand when it hit me. She wrote things down carefully, dates, words used, who was nearby. When she finished, she looked at me and said, "We have multiple witnesses, video too." I believed her. Later, after the staples were in and the scan came back clear, my phone finally turned back on. I hadn't realized it had died. There were messages waiting, dozens of them. I didn't open any. One number wasn't saved in my contacts, but I recognized it anyway. Evan. I stared at the screen for a long moment before answering. "I'm outside," he said, "if that's okay." It was quiet in the hospital room. Machines hummed softly. Somewhere down the hall, someone laughed inappropriately loud, the way people do when they're exhausted. "Okay," I said. When Evan walked in, he looked different. Not panicked, not angry, just alert, like something had finally come into focus. He sat down across from me and placed the folded paper I'd noticed earlier on the bedside tray. "I didn't want to do this tonight," he said. "But after what happened, you deserve to know." He unfolded the paper once, then again, smoothing it carefully. "It's from my accountant," he said. "Sent yesterday." I didn't reach for it. He kept his voice level as he spoke, reading directly from the page. Numbers, categories, dates, debt. A lot more of it than I expected. When he finished, he didn't look at me right away. "I'm not sure I married the person I thought I did," he said quietly. We sat there in silence, the paper between us, the weight of it settled and heavy. And for the first time since the wedding started, everything felt strangely orderly. Then my phone buzzed again. This time, it was my mother. I turned the screen face down, and I waited. I didn't answer my mother's call. I didn't decline it either. I let it ring until it stopped on its own, then set the phone farther away on the bedside tray like it belonged to someone else. Evan noticed, but didn't comment. After a minute, he stood up and straightened the cuffs of his jacket. "I should go," he said. "Police are still downstairs. They'll want my statement too." I nodded. "Thanks for telling me." He hesitated at the door. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry. About all of it." When he left, the room felt quieter than before. The nurse came back to discharge me with instructions printed in neat black text. No driving, no screens. Rest. Watch for dizziness or nausea. Follow up in 5 days. I've always liked instructions. Clear rules make things manageable. A neighbor picked me up. Tom, the guy 2 houses down, retired electrician. We didn't talk much on the drive. He didn't ask questions, just turned the radio low and took the long way to avoid traffic. When I walked into my house, it smelled faintly of pine cleaner and fresh wood. The lights came on automatically when I stepped inside. I stood there longer than necessary, keys still in my hand. Nothing had changed. The floors were still level. The cabinets still closed cleanly. The house didn't feel offended or shaken by what had happened. It just stood there, solid and quiet. I sat at the kitchen counter and took my phone out again. More messages had come in. From my mother, from my sister, from numbers I didn't recognize but could guess belonged to relatives who'd already decided what side they were on. I didn't read them. Instead, I opened a folder I'd kept backed up in 3 places: cloud storage, an external drive, and a physical binder in the hall closet. Property documents, the land deed, my grandmother's will, the appraisal, permits, inspection approvals, receipts, loan repayment confirmation to my parents, stamped and dated. I laid them out on the counter one by one, aligning the edges. Not because I was afraid they'd disappear, but because it grounded me. Facts have weight. Paper has texture. Ink doesn't argue back. Around midnight, a police officer called to confirm my statement and explain the next steps. Charges would be filed. A no-contact order would be issued. My father had been released on bail. I listened, asked 2 clarifying questions, thanked her. After the call, I turned off the lights and sat in the dark living room for a while, just listening to the house settle. The next morning, I woke up late with a headache that felt like pressure more than pain. I made coffee and sat at the table I'd built myself the previous winter. The surface still had a faint unevenness if you ran your palm across it. I'd left it that way on purpose. My phone buzzed. A text from Evan. I spoke to my attorney this morning. There are things you should know. Let me know if you're up for a conversation. I stared at the message longer than I needed to. Then I typed back, "Come by this afternoon." I spent the next few hours doing small, ordinary things. I washed the dishes, took out the trash, changed the batteries in the smoke detector that had been chirping for weeks, step by step. No rushing. When Evan arrived, he didn't bring paperwork this time, just himself. We sat in the living room. He told me, calmly, that he was filing for an annulment. Grounds were misrepresentation, timeline was short, process straightforward. "I'm not angry," he said. "I'm just done." I understood that feeling more than I expected. Before he left, he looked around again, slower this time. "You built something real here," he said. "That matters." After the door closed, I locked it, not out of fear, out of choice. That evening, my phone rang again. This time, it was a number I didn't recognize at all. I answered. "Mr. Hale," a man said, professional and measured. "This is the public defender assigned to your father. I'd like to discuss possible resolutions." I listened without interrupting. When he finished, I said, "I'll consider nothing until after the arraignment." There was a pause on the line. "I understand," he said. I hung up, set the phone face down, and returned the documents to their folder. Then I waited. The arraignment happened 3 days later. I didn't go. My attorney explained that I didn't need to be present, and I believed her. I followed the case through official updates instead. Emails, timestamps, docket numbers. The language was neutral, efficient, no room for interpretation. Assault with a weapon. No contact order confirmed. Preliminary hearing scheduled. That was enough. What surprised me wasn't the legal process. It was how quiet my life became once I stopped responding. No more calls from relatives. No more messages from numbers pretending to check on me. Silence has a way of filtering intentions. I used the time to get organized. Step 1. I secured my boundaries. I changed the locks, even though the order said my father couldn't come near the property. I updated the security system. New codes, new passwords, nothing dramatic, just maintenance. Step 2. I documented everything. Every message that came in after the incident was archived. Screenshots labeled with dates and times. Voicemails exported and saved. I didn't listen to most of them, but I kept them anyway. Step 3. I prepared without assuming outcomes. I reviewed the house insurance policy, updated my emergency contact, added my attorney's number to the top of my phone. None of this felt emotional. It felt like filing taxes or renewing a license. Necessary, but impersonal. A week after the wedding, Evan emailed me again. Short message. No apology this time, just confirmation. Annulment filed, final hearing scheduled. You were right to protect what you built. I replied with a single sentence. I hope you're doing okay. And I meant it. Work helped. I'd accepted a position with a small custom builder outside the city. Not flashy homes, practical ones. People who cared about quality but didn't need to advertise it. The first day on site, I was handed a set of plans and a set of keys. No speech, no orientation packet, just trust. I worked with my hands, measured twice, cut once. The rhythm came back quickly. During lunch breaks, I checked my phone once. No more than that. 2 weeks after the arraignment, my father's attorney called again. Different tone this time. Mr. Hale, he said, my client is prepared to accept responsibility. He's willing to enter counseling, perform community service, and reimburse all medical expenses. I listened. When he finished, I asked, is that in writing? Yes. Then send it to my attorney. There was a pause. You're not interested in reconciling? I'm interested in the process being followed, I said. Nothing more. He didn't push. The preliminary hearing was set for mid-October. I planned to attend that one. In the meantime, my sister tried once more. She showed up at my house. I wasn't home when she arrived. The camera caught her standing on the porch, phone in hand, shifting her weight back and forth. She stayed for 6 minutes, left without knocking. I watched the footage that evening, muted. I didn't save it. I didn't delete it either. The next morning, my attorney forwarded me the official witness list, 37 names. I recognized only a few. The rest were strangers who'd been in the room, people with no reason to lie and nothing to gain. That was when I felt the shift. Not relief, not satisfaction, clarity. This wasn't something I needed to manage emotionally. It was something already in motion, governed by rules and timelines that didn't care about family dynamics. I closed the email, shut down my laptop, and went back to work. That night, I sat on the back steps of my house with a glass of water and listened to the neighborhood settle. A car passed. A dog barked once. Somewhere, a porch light flicked on. My phone buzzed. One new message. From my attorney. Defense counsel has requested a plea discussion before trial. I read it once. Then, I put the phone face down and waited. The preliminary hearing was held on a Monday morning. I arrived early, sat on a wooden bench outside the courtroom with my hands folded, posture neutral, like I was waiting for a dentist appointment. My attorney arrived 10 minutes later, nodded once, and reviewed a short checklist with me. No surprises, no last-minute changes. Inside, the room was colder than necessary. The judge sat higher than everyone else, already reading through a stack of documents before the clerk called the case. My father sat at the defense table. I hadn't seen him since the wedding night. He looked smaller, not weaker, just reduced. Like someone whose world had narrowed without permission. He didn't look at me when I walked in. I didn't look at him either. There was no need. When my name was called, I stood and took the oath. My voice was steady. I spoke clearly. I answered only what was asked. What was said to you at the reception? Who was present? What object was used? Did you consent to being struck? No elaboration. No commentary. The defense attorney tried to soften the language. Family tension, emotional moment, stress. I waited for the question before responding. He picked up a metal stand and struck me in the head, I said. That's what happened. The judge stopped the line of questioning herself. We're not here to reframe facts, she said. Proceed. 3 witnesses testified. Then the security officer. Then the responding officer. Each statement matched the last. Video evidence was introduced. Multiple angles, no confusion. At the end, the judge reviewed her notes and looked directly at the defense. This will proceed to trial, she said. There is sufficient evidence. That was it. Outside the courtroom, my father's attorney approached me. He stood at a respectful distance, hands visible, tone careful. "Mr. Hale," he said, "before we move further, my client would like to speak with you privately." "No," I said. He blinked. "Just a brief—" "No," I repeated, calm, final. My attorney stepped slightly forward, not aggressively, just enough to mark the boundary. The conversation ended there. Over the next 2 months, offers came in through proper channels: probation instead of jail, reduced charges, mediation. Each time I read the summary, each time I declined, not out of spite, out of consistency. The trial was scheduled for January. During that time, I didn't avoid my father. I didn't confront him either. I let the no-contact order do its work. My sister tried once more, through a third party. A cousin emailed me suggesting we clear the air before things went too far. I replied with one sentence: "This matter is already being handled." That was the last attempt. When the trial began, the courtroom was full but quiet. Evidence was presented in order: dates, videos, medical records, expert testimony about head injuries. The defense argued lack of intent. The prosecution argued choice. I testified again, same facts, same calm tone. When the jury left to deliberate, I didn't pace, I didn't speculate. I sat. 4 hours later, they returned. Guilty. No reaction moved through me, not relief, not anger, just confirmation. Sentencing was scheduled for the following month. In the weeks between, I focused on routine: work, sleep, physical therapy for lingering dizziness, evenings spent reading or fixing small things around the house. The night before sentencing, I cleaned my kitchen slowly, wiped the counters, swept the floor, set the coffee maker for the morning. I laid out the same folder I'd used before, documents neatly stacked, not because I needed them, but because order has a calming effect. At sentencing, the judge spoke plainly: probation, community service, mandatory counseling, restitution. My father cried. When the judge asked if I wished to address the court, I stood. I didn't look at him, I looked straight ahead. "I built my home with my own hands," I said. "I protected it the same way." Then I sat back down. The gavel came down softly. Outside the courthouse, winter air felt sharp and clean. I didn't linger. I went home. And for the first time since the wedding, I slept through the night. Life didn't reset all at once after sentencing. It adjusted in small, practical ways. The restitution checks arrived through my attorney's office. Medical bills first, court fees next, everything itemized, everything documented. I didn't have to ask for follow-ups. The system handled it. The no-contact order stayed in place. 5 years. Automatic. I changed nothing about my daily routine because there was nothing left to defend. The house was quiet, predictable, solid. At work, projects moved forward. Cabinet doors lined up the way they should. Drawers closed cleanly. Clients cared about details, and I delivered them without explaining myself. That was enough. One afternoon in early spring, Evan emailed me again. No subject line, just a short update. The annulment is final. Lauren filed for bankruptcy last month. I thought you should know. I hope you're doing well. I read it once. Then I archived it. There was nothing more to say. My mother never reached out directly after that. Neither did my father. Relatives stopped asking questions when they realized I wasn't interested in retelling the story in pieces that made anyone feel better. Silence settled in where expectation used to live, and silence, it turns out, is efficient. 6 months after the wedding, the scar along my hairline faded to something only I noticed. The headaches disappeared. Sleep came easier. I built a small deck out back during the summer, nothing elaborate, just enough space for a chair, a table, and a string of lights overhead. I worked on it in the evenings, slow and steady, measuring twice, stopping when the light got low. My neighbor, Tom, stopped by one night with 2 bottles of beer. He didn't ask permission. He just set them down and sat. "You did good work," he said, nodding at the deck. "Thanks." We sat without talking for a while. Fireflies blinked near the fence line. Somewhere down the block, someone was grilling. After a few minutes, he said, "Family can be complicated." I nodded once. "That house," he added, "it suits you." I took a sip and looked back through the sliding door at the place I'd built. Every wall square, every decision intentional. "It does," I said. Later that night, after Tom left, I washed the glasses and set them upside down on a towel to dry. I turned off the lights room by room the way I always do. Before bed, I checked my phone one last time. No missed calls, no messages waiting, just the lock screen, quiet and still. I set the phone face down on the nightstand. Then I went to sleep, and nothing followed me there. Late summer settled in without asking permission. Most evenings I sit on the back deck just before dark, not doing anything important. Sometimes I rinse a mug and bring it outside. Sometimes I don't. The air cools. The neighborhood quiets in layers, one sound at a time. The house doesn't need much from me anymore. That's a good thing. I keep it clean. I fix what needs fixing. I leave the rest alone. Every once in a while, I catch myself thinking about how easily things could have gone differently if I'd tried to smooth it over. If I'd handed something over just to keep the peace. That thought never lasts long. Peace that costs you your footing isn't peace. It's just delay. A few weeks ago, a coworker stayed late after everyone else left the site. He didn't say much at first, just stood there watching the light fade across the framing. Then he said, "Can I ask you something off the record?" I told him yes. He explained a situation with his own family. Different details, same pressure, same quiet expectation that he'd carry more than his share because he always had. I didn't give advice. I didn't tell him what to do. I just told him to write everything down, to slow down, to protect what was his before trying to protect anyone else. He nodded, like that was exactly what he needed to hear. That happens more often than I expected. People recognize calm when they see it. They ask how it's built. The truth is, it isn't built all at once. It's built in steps, boundaries, paperwork, silence when silence is the right response, saying no once and meaning it. Tonight, the deck lights come on automatically. Warm glow, no flicker. I lean back in the chair and listen to the house breathe the way buildings do when the temperature shifts. Wood expanding, pipes settling, everything in its place. If you've made it this far, thanks for spending the time with me. If this story felt familiar in any way, you're not alone, and you're not wrong for wanting things to be fair, clear, and steady. If you'd like to hear more stories like this, go ahead and like the video and subscribe. It helps the channel, and it helps these stories find the right people. And if you're comfortable, tell me in the comments which city you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. I read those. 2 more stories will be up next, both different situations, but the same quiet theme. I'll see you there.